This is Straight Talk Live with Yonah on News Talk 1010.
Hi there, it's Yonah. Welcome on a beautiful Saturday night here in Toronto. A little chilly, but lovely. Lots of action on the street. Tonight, we're going back to the discussion about gun violence. I have a guest in here with us tonight. I'm here with a good friend of mine, Louis March. Louis is dedicated to something called Zero Gun Violence. It's a movement. It's not an organization. There's no one in charge. I'm not sure how they raise money and stuff. We're going to talk about that with him. So we're going to talk a little bit about Louis and how he got involved in this and what's actually going on underground. What's happening within all of the movements, all of these different organizations that Louis has managed to kind of cobble together so they work in some form of harmony without political intervention, without any kind of real corporate sponsorship that I'm aware of. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll be back in just a little bit. We're going to talk to Louis about how to make a difference, what they're doing right now to try to keep your streets and my streets safer and keep our kids alive in all neighborhoods. So I'm here with my buddy Louis. Hi, Louis.
Good evening, my friend.
I think you have to get a little closer to the mic because you're so chill. You can actually bring the mic to you if you want. But listen, you've been out running around all day today doing your thing, and we're going to talk about what that thing is. So I thank you for joining us here tonight. This is like your third or fourth visit, right, to something today?
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
It's a pleasure. So as you know, Louis is one of our regular Guns and Gangs panel, along with Marcel Wilson, Patrick Shaw, DT the artist, and now I think Francis Nunziato. So we're working towards trying to make some change, but Louis is out there every day, all day. He runs an organization called Zero Gun Violence. It's a movement. It's not an organization. He says it's not really a thing. It doesn't have an office per se, but you can help out. You can join them. You can join their outreach team. You can make a financial contribution. You can invite them to your organization and talk about stuff. That's what they're all about, trying to spread the word about Zero Gun Violence. They're available on social media. zerogunviolence.movement@gmail.com if you want to email them, or /movement.com, or on social media, Zero Gun Violence @Zero Gun Violence. 416-577-3908. Louis, how did you get involved in this kind of stuff? And you're out there all day trying to spread the word and help other organizations spread the word. How'd you get involved in doing this?
You know what? We started in 2013. We just had the shooting at the Eaton Centre, the Danzig shooting.
Right.
I'm a corporate manager by trade.
Okay.
I work in financial services.
Okay.
And I've been doing that for some time until I got laid off due to a downsizing.
Okay.
Just when those shootings were taking place.
I got you.
So at that time, it was about time to do a reevaluation
of your life,
of where I was going.
Right.
I'd done enough time in the corporate world, and I said, look, we had the shooting at Danzig, we had the shooting in the Eaton Centre, so I called a community meeting with some community organizations that I've previously worked with, and I said, what the heck is going on?
How did you previously work with them? As a financial manager through your...
No, as a youth worker.
As a youth worker. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the piece you forgot to share.
So I initially started working under the stewardship or the mentorship of people like Dudley Laws and Charles Roach.
Okay.
And our issue then was police brutality.
Right.
So I was doing that on the side while I was working full-time.
Okay.
But then in 2012, 2013, the shooting started taking place within our community. And I asked the question, how come? What has changed? This is not police brutality. This is brutality amongst ourselves.
Correct.
So I called a community meeting and said, what's going on here? And because I'm from the corporate world, one of my management theories is something called MBO, management by objective. You clearly state your objective.
Right.
You supply your staff with the resources and means to achieve it after they buy into it.
Okay.
And then you monitor it.
Okay.
So I said, what's our objective here? And I went and said, zero gun violence. And
these organizations, these were already, these are social change organizations, these are religious organizations?
No, they were youth community organizations, youth involved organizations, mostly working with youth.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I said, what's our objective here?
Right.
So I said, zero gun violence. And everybody thought it was crazy. I said, you can't have zero gun violence in the city of Toronto. Have you not been reading the newspaper? Have you not been listening to the news? I said, hold on a second. We already have zero gun violence in the city of Toronto, but we only have it in certain communities for certain people.
Right.
There's a difference between living in Rosedale and Rexdale.
Right.
So I said, if they can have zero gun violence in Rosedale, why can't we have zero gun violence in Rexdale? If they can have zero gun violence in Hyde Park, why can't we have zero gun violence in Regent Park?
Right.
And what's going on that's different?
And did anybody have answers?
It seemed as though most people bought into the status quo, that this is the way it had to be.
Okay.
So my challenge was basically, no, it doesn't have to be this way.
Okay.
Let's identify what's going on in these different communities and how do we close the gap. And then I stated that objective, people started buying into it.
Okay.
Then how do we go about closing the gap when there's no political will, no political leadership? Poverty gap is increasing. The safety net that we normally have to catch people that slip between now needed a safety net for itself.
Right.
Where do we go with this? So people started buying into what can we do differently.
And so did you create a plan, then try to fund it, and then kind of so tell me how zero gun violence as a movement, because I understand that's your definition. Tell me how it works. Like, tell me about the moving pieces, the tentacles. So is there a hierarchy? Is there a board of advisors who then advise other organizations? Like, explain it to the audience and explain it to me. We're listening to Louis March from Zero Gun Violence. We're talking about how to take guns off the street and make it a safer place. But like, how does that work? How does your movement work, if you will?
So basically, we have over 40 different organizations, agencies, programs that we work with across the city.
Okay.
They do all the legwork. They do all the organizational work.
Okay.
Zero Gun Violence Movement is a facilitator.
Okay.
We bring them together. If we're going to go into a community, we know which organizations to go through. If there's going to be a funding request or something, the money would go to the organizations.
Right.
So we don't have a head office.
Do you help them arrange the funding? I mean, obviously your business skills and your management skills. Do you help them put together applications?
No, they have the infrastructure to do it. And if they don't, we can connect them with people that we know.
I see.
So we have a broad network.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm the founder.
Okay.
And I have a core group of people that work close to me in terms of advising, in terms of work on the streets.
Okay.
And I listen to them.
Right.
I listen to them more than I listen to John Tory. I listen to them more than I listen to the police.
Okay.
Because these people are people on the street. For example,
an example would be great.
Yeah, mothers who have lost children to gun violence.
Right. Is that a movement? Is that an organization?
Yeah, there's several organizations.
Okay.
Right. One of them is Communities for Zero Violence, which is mothers who have lost their children to gun violence.
Okay.
So we work close with them.
How come we don't hear about them? You don't read about them? I haven't seen anything. I scan the paper every day and the news every day for my show, for my shows on the weekend. Like, I haven't seen them or heard of any of these. I thought when we sat in our last group, we were talking about getting the mothers involved. Clearly their mothers are already involved. How come we don't know?
They're involved, but maybe you've been reading the wrong newspapers and listening to the wrong news. I
listen to News Talk 1010.
There's organizations such as You Move, Communities for Zero Violence. There's support groups that help mothers who have lost children to gun violence.
Okay.
And their torment, their trauma, their agony, their pain is 24/7.
Right.
So it's not that they're going to come out and talk loud about what's going on. Some of them, it's internalized. And the working relationship, the communication strategy is all different because there's certain triggers, there's certain anniversaries, all these things are going on.
Right.
So they're not your typical, let's go to the media and talk about what's going on. Right?
And why isn't the media going to them to talk about what's going on?
The media does.
Okay.
Communities for Zero Violence has been in the news regularly recently, right? But it takes time for them to have that comfort level with the media to speak about their realities. We also work with people that have been involved in criminal activity, people that have done the crime, done the time.
And are now mentoring.
And are mentoring and making a difference. Again, these people are not going to run out to the media and say, guess what I did right, Okay, I was responsible for this. So that's the broad network that we work with. But we also work with service providers.
Right.
People that actually go out there and do the work. Phoebe, which is families impacted by incarceration.
Right.
Right? When somebody is incarcerated, there's a family relationship that still exists.
Right.
And how do you maintain that on a healthy basis? You have organizations such as Young and Potential Fathers, One by One, Keep Six.
Right.
These are all people that come and do this service from a different perspective. But again, you're not going to see them on the front page of the newspapers and stuff.
Okay,
so our network on the streets.
Front pages here, October 16th, Wednesday. Federal campaigns miss the point on ending gun violence. Advocates say local experts agree handgun ban is only a small piece of a much larger puzzle that must include focus on root causes of crime. I'm sitting here with my brother, Louis March from Zero Gun Violence Movement. He once taught me not so long ago when we first started doing shows together, it's not about the roots, baby, it's about the seeds.
Oh, yes.
So what are you guys doing? So we were talking before we went on break and had a call from a caller, which was great, and really encouraging that we should all go out and volunteer and see if we can make a difference. Now, you've got this whole overlay of organizations. We were talking a little bit offline about Zero Gun Violence Movement kind of helps them navigate, some of these organizations navigate for funding. And so is the money that these groups are getting, these smaller community groups, and I'm going to kind of ask you a straight out question because I'm a little on the dubious side, technically and typically these days, you got to worry about charities. Is the money going to where it's got to go?
Let me answer it this way. Yonah, the communities are not underserved. They're poorly served.
Explain that.
There's the difference between quantity and quality. You go into communities, there's programs coming out of every corner. But are they the right programs for the right people at the right time? And are they delivered by the right people?
Right.
And in many of the, they can't even get 2 out of 4 right, most of these organizations. So money is being spent.
But what are they getting the fund? So when I know when you try to get, because Patrick and I used to run a charity together. He was from the community, the Toronto side, the city of Toronto side, and I was running it from the charitable side, and we worked together at a place called the Hope House Youth Charities, and we know what it was like to try to get city funding, and you have to jump through a lot of hoops, come up with proposals, what you're going to do with the money, benchmarks and milestones, all that kind of stuff. What are they saying they're going to deliver when they get the funding to begin with?
Look, if somebody can tell me that more than 1% of funding dollars is spent on evaluating the outcomes of that program, I'd be surprised.
So nobody really cares. That's why you're telling me they're not working.
A lot of these programs are not, and the ones that are working are not getting funding. Right, because they're not the glamorous ones on the front page, right? With the silky, glossy brochures that tell stories that are not true, right? The ones that are, people are rolling up their sleeves, taking phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning to help somebody that's in grief, right? These organizations are not going to get funded because they do not fit the model.
But isn't that kind of part of the job of Zero Gun Violence Movement, is to give them a face? I mean, you're all over the place. Everybody knows who you are.
A lot of these organizations are doing the work on the streets.
Okay. But if nobody knows about it, how are they going to get their funding?
It's going to take time. Okay. Because
do we have time?
The funders are comfortable giving the money to certain organizations, whether it's federal, provincial, or city.
Safe zones.
Of course, right? The ones that are doing the work, they're not going to fit the criteria and characteristics of who the funder wants to fund, right? Because they're not going to produce that timely application for funding. They're not going to produce the glossy brochure that says pictures with smiling faces and what we've done, which we know is not true.
Right.
So the funders feel comfortable doing that.
So as long as they get a warm and cozy feeling, whether it's working or not, it's another story,
the funders have to do a better job. The government has to do a better job of assessing and evaluating the assets that they have on the ground, the programs that they fund, the outcomes of these programs. Because we have a funding model that says most of these organizations are working 9 to 5. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Give me a break.
Half the people we want to deal with aren't even getting out of bed yet.
Make it 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. and see what happens.
Exactly.
Who's going to deliver the service at that time?
Which is when your people are actually doing it. Anyway, 416-872-1010. Text us to 71010. Jump in here because Louis is starting to get riled up because we're talking about stuff he really cares about. So they're out there doing the job. Let's talk about some stuff on the upside here a little bit, right? And then I'll give you some time at the end of the show where you can lash out at the politicians and tell us who we should.
You sure you want to do that?
I think so. It's like to keep it clean. And because I'm asexual. I'm apolitical, so it's irrelevant to me. I don't like any of them, frankly. But anyway, what is this Zero Gun Violence Movement and all of these? I think you've got 40-odd kind of tentacle organizations or groups or, kind of hubs that you work with. Some are just small hubs within one single community. Tell me about some good stuff they're doing.
Okay, let's take a look at
success stories, you know?
Let's take a look at a young fellow. Well, he's young compared to me, but so he was inside 4 times.
Okay. Inside meaning in jail.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on the 5th time, he said, I've had enough. I can't go back.
Okay.
And he wanted a way out. But there's no way out for him.
Okay.
Because the system will not give them a break. In California, it's 3 strikes, you're out. That means you do 3 felonies, and the third one, they lock you up and they throw the key away.
Okay.
In Canada, and nobody's calling this out, it's 1 strike and you're out. Once you get that criminal record, the chances of you getting a job, employment with the 15 top employers in the city of Toronto is almost 0 to 1%. There's no way out for these kids, right? And they make mistakes. Look, let's be honest. Let's be frank.
Please.
They're not angels, but they're not the devil either.
Okay.
But we must give them a second chance.
Yeah, I don't believe in flushing any kid down the drain.
Right? So we turn our backs on them and then we're surprised. So a lot of the kids that we work with, have 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Okay.
They're trying to stay out. So this fellow that I make mention of, right? It was very difficult for him to survive outside because he also had pending charges.
Okay.
But working with Zero Gun Violence movement gave him an opportunity to engage young people
Right.
and how to avoid the trap of criminal activity.
But what about how he pays his bills and pays his rent? And
he was able to secure a part-time job with an organization called Peace Builders.
Okay.
Right? And now he's in university doing social work.
Amazing.
And now he's reaching out to the same population that he used to deal with before.
Amazing.
In a positive way. Right? Nobody is going to give him the front page of the newspaper.
Right.
Right? But these are people that are making the difference.
So onesies, one at a time.
It is. So it's somebody that actually cares and loves and is willing to pay the price. Because this is not easy. We have many people that have 1 foot in one out, and it's just a matter of time before they go back to what they were doing.
Of course.
Who's going to hire them? Who's going to give them a job with a criminal record? Who is going to do it? The city of Toronto? Hell no. Right? And it goes down the line. Financial institutions? Hell no. Major corporations? Hell no.
What about the, okay, so I get the employment piece, but what about, because I worked in the prisons for close to a decade, and, we worked with patients, with inmates coming and going and, typically on their way out. Education. It's in many cases, especially for the youth that you're talking about, and I assume we're talking about youth, they just don't know. Many cases, they don't know any other way, and inside they're not learning any other way. So don't we have to start by giving them giving them some skills or an education, and then get them employed somewhere? All of which I think should be paid for by the government.
80% of the people in the provincial jail system right now don't have a proper 8th grade diploma.
Right. So
80%, 8 out of 10. They give them diplomas that are worthless.
So what kind of jobs are available to them?
You asking me, right? The only jobs that are available are on the streets. Hustle. Because who's going to give them a job? You can't even get a job at Tim Hortons with a criminal record.
And an 8th grade. So it's not even about
So this should not be a surprise when you see the level of violence that we're seeing in the city.
So the question is, should we not be educating these young people in a better way, either while they're in jail, if that's the case? I worked with a lot of prisoners that got their GED, in their late 20s, early 30s. They got their GED, their high school diploma while in jail. They were doing 2 years less a day or whatever. That was part of their rehab, if you will.
But when they come out, housing, mental health, drug addiction,
right,
family structures, right? All your friend circles have gone.
Right.
So you're coming out, right? Oh, so I've got my GD while I was inside. Where's that going to take you if you don't have wraparound services and supports, right?
Are these the people are these the people that are pulling the triggers? Are we talking about the same body? The same guy that got out of jail and doesn't have a place to go, can't find a job. Is he the one, or is it more like our buddy was talking about when he was here last? One by one. I'm sorry, Marcel was saying that these are kids that are mostly punks that see something on social media, get all pissed off that somebody's dissing their neighborhood or throwing a finger up at them or making fun of their fat girlfriend or whatever, something like that, and then they go out and they shoot somebody. I'm still trying to get a profile of who's pulling the trigger.
Look, a 15-year-old says to me straight up, "I fear living more than I fear dying." Why? 15 years old, you're still in diapers. What do you know about life? And you're giving up on it already? But think about the circumstances and life that he lives.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You think if he doesn't value his life, is he going to value yours?
Right.
Right? When he sees everybody else around him hustling and living,
right,
what's he going to do? Say, I'm not going to be part of that?
No,
right?
it's next to impossible.
Like you go into certain communities and it's shut down at 6 o'clock. As soon as the sun sets, it's gone. You can't even smile. But you go into another community, everybody's got a big smile on their face with 3 shopping bags, ice cream cone in one hand, and a dog following them, right? Toronto has become a city of cities.
Correct.
It depends on where you live. And the environment. So when I talk about the seeds of violence versus the roots, right? Sometimes by the roots it's too late. Jonah, it's too late.
Yeah, man.
What are the seeds? Is it systemic racism? Is it systemic poverty? Where poverty has become normalized, right? Where you know that there's no way out for you, or you think there's no way out. So what do we as a society, as a caring, resourceful, rich, international city, what are we doing to fill the gaps, to make this right? Not for some, but for all. Are we doing enough? Hell no.
One of the texters say, I have no sympathy for the gangbangers that you talk about. Now, this is a person I would love to have call in so we can actually talk about what they mean. But Louis March is here with me from Zero Gun Violence. I think that's systemic. And let me explain to these people before you and I carry on, because we have such a little bit of time left. Gangbangers are kids that went the wrong way. They started off as kids. And if you have kids, look at your own and love them, but they could just as easily have gone the wrong way. So it's a misplaced energy that youth have that end up putting them in places. And in many cases, like Louis is talking about, they don't have a choice. So you want to hate them, you can hate them, or come up with a solution, because they all are kids. And they're forced to live like men, and women grow up way too fast and prove themselves, but they have no idea what they're doing, and they're just lost. So our job tonight, Louis, you and me, is to try to figure out what we can do starting to go forward, and part of our whole gang violence group that we meet on a regular basis with. But I think our job is to figure out how we can get to the roots that you're talking about, the seeds. And one of the things we were talking about offline, we have some great conversations offline. It's too bad we just couldn't roll the tape. But, we were talking about education. It starts with education. You were jumping off your chair. You almost went like you're almost sitting in my lap. So I agree with you. I think we should fill warehouses full of misplaced youth and educate them, teach them, give them what we need. I mean, we have teachers that are out of work or retired. We have empty spaces, empty schools. We can make it a lunch and breakfast program as well, so they at least get a meal. We can include free basketball after school. We can do all kinds of stuff. I've seen it work in other programs, in youth-run programs where people like you and me go out of our way to do what we need to do to try to save the world that we're living in, right? Somebody here wants to know what a gangbanger is. A gangbanger is an individual who's involved in a gang member. They're referred to as gangbangers. And that's what, it's kind of an ugly term because it refers to other really ugly things too. But these are just youth wrapped into some violence. So now you know what gangbangers are, and I'm sorry we didn't define it. But so let's go back. I think you're right. It's all about education. I think we got to do a better job of educating, not just giving these young people, skills so they can actually get a job, but educating them in terms of choices, giving them someone to talk to. Half these people like and I know, they don't have anybody to talk to, right, man?
Okay, so there's his name is Ricky Atkinson.
Okay.
He did 32 years.
Okay.
He was a gang leader, the Dirty Tricks gang, one of the most notorious gangs in the city of Toronto. 32 years.
Okay.
Right? So he works with us.
Right.
So I said, Ricky, was there a time in your life, because you're clearly a natural born leader.
Right.
Right? Was there a time where you could have gone another way?
The other way.
That crossroads. Was there? He didn't even think about it. He said, yes.
Right.
So I said, Ricky, seriously? He said, yeah. I said, when? He said, when he was a teenager, if there was a strong mentor that he trusted and respected that said, hell, Ricky, you ain't going that way, you need to go this way, and provided him the supports, he could have changed one of the most darkest chapters in Toronto's history when it comes to gang activity, right? We're never there. We're always late. We have a 17-year-old. He's in grade 11.
Right.
I said, Louis, even if you got me a job, I couldn't keep it. I said, pardon me? Yeah, I couldn't keep it. Why? Because I can't read. How can a 17-year-old in grade 11 in Toronto in 2019 not able to read? How the heck did he get there?
That's a good question for our politicians, and we're all going to go to vote in a couple of nights, right? So a couple of days. you have these conversations, I know you have them, with all kinds of politicians and all kinds of leaders of communities and businesses across the GTA and elsewhere. People talk to you all the time about it. When they talk to you, it's just, okay, Louis, you're doing a great job, or is it, I mean, when you engage these people, you're very engaging. I mean, we're friends, but beyond that, you're just very engaging, and you're very passionate about what you're talking about, and you're an educated man that has a good corporate history. You're not, you're not a guy out of trying to survive out of a cardboard box, thank God. But you're very close to it. You grew up around it, as we understood in an earlier part of you and I talking offline. You kind of grew up in and around housing, but managed to make a real good life for yourself, and I assume for your family. But like, are the people that you talk to at the political levels, because we're really talking about voting somebody in here, are they listening to you at all? I mean, I don't see the results, but again, I'm just one guy. Maybe there's results out there that I can't comprehend, or I don't, that's not on my GPS or on my radar, so to speak. But
look, let's look at gun violence or other forms of violence as a report card of what we did, good or bad, yesterday. Where did we fail? Because gun violence just doesn't come out of the blue. Nobody's born with a gun in their hand. No one's born saying, I want to be a gangbanger. Nobody is born saying, I want to be a gang leader, drug dealer, right? There's a sequence of events that take place. We know it, right? So let's look at gun violence as a report card of, did we do things good 10 years ago?
Right.
Did we do things bad 10 years ago? Because we're seeing the results of that today.
Right.
So there's a lot of politicians out there that has F beside their name on this report card.
Right.
For not being there, doing the right thing at the right time. Right. Funding the right programs with the right people to get the results that we know that we can. Toronto's an incredible city.
Because they're not listening?
They're not listening. They're all playing political games. Right? Have you ever seen the federal, provincial, and municipal government leaders sitting down at the same table talking about gun violence that they all claim is a priority? We can't even get the three of them at the same table at the same time.
I have a text here that says here, society is more concerned with protection from violent people than reforming violent people. How do you protect against violent people if you don't reform violent people? I mean, here is part of the issue. Like,
it's not rocket science what we need to do.
We don't have to build more gates, more fences, more jails. We need to build more intelligence, right?
Invest in people, invest in communities. We know the communities. We know the circumstances. Massive intervention into these areas will make a big difference.
So somebody says here, so they've gone wrong. It's sad. So now it's the responsibility of law-abiding citizens, ? No, I refuse. Now what? Okay, great. So be careful every time you go to a shopping mall. Worry about going downtown in Toronto for a nice dinner or a drink, because these so-called people that you want to turn your backs on, us as law-abiding citizens, quote unquote, we keep turning our backs on them, and we may as well step over the homeless as well. We're not going anywhere, man. So we got like a minute left here. What are we going to do?
We can't make progress if we don't bring
that kind of an attitude, right?
Look, there's 20 pieces in this puzzle.
Right.
You have one piece with what you're doing with mental health and drug addiction. I have one piece, right? Everybody has a piece, but we can't get all those pieces at the table to connect them to create the solution.
Why?
Because there's no political leadership and will to do it. There's no political will and leadership. Have you heard John Tory, who is an incredible mayor, experienced and seasoned mayor? Why can't he do something like this? Like, is his legacy going to be that under his reign as mayor in Toronto, gun violence spiked? No, he can do better. And he has not come through, besides saying, well, I've had multiple phone calls with the chief, or it's a priority to me.
Okay, well, we're going to, we just definitely have to have you back again and again. It's never enough. Thanks, Louis. Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate all of you guys and gals out there listening to us tonight. All you folks, remember tomorrow's a big show on picking a partner, picking a friend, obviously picking a political candidate. 2 more sleeps, and then we're going to have to figure this stuff out. Make sure you get a handle on your anxiety. We'll talk to you again tomorrow night. This is Yonah on Straight Talk Live on In-Depth Radio, News Talk 1010 on the Bell Talk Radio Network. We're going to make a difference sooner or later. If we keep at this, buddy, I promise. Louis, shake your head. I promise, man. We're going to make a difference if all of you out there.
No, we can do better.
There we can.
We can do better, and we must do better.
Okay, so we're going to keep tuning in, man. We're going to kind of try to make a change here. Love you guys. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.
You're too damn young for a funeral. Brother, can't you see it? You're beautiful. But you're too damn young for a funeral. Leaders of the world, yeah, Listen to what I say, 'cause I know you can hear me, and you see what I say. Incarceration is not the solution. Let's address the problem. Young people suffering, yeah, nah, nah. They're too damn young, too damn young, yeah. They're too damn young for a funeral. My brothers are beautiful. You're too damn young, my brother. You got so much to offer. You're too damn young. I believe in you, yeah. I love you.